Well, thank you guys so much for coming today. I truly appreciate you taking the time out of your very busy schedules. Um, and I'm so glad to have you here to hear your opinions in our focus group. Our focus group today is going to be focusing on professional development and how it affects teacher growth. I thought we might start off with some introductions. So I'm going to introduce myself first. My name is Rob Lewis, also known as Coach Lewis. I've been a teacher now. This is my 9th year. So I started in middle school. I've taught 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and some unfortunate 12th graders as well. So it has been a myriad of experiences. I came into high school 3 years ago as a Spanish teacher and as a head soccer coach. And so I'm interested to hear your diverse opinions. I'm going to go to my right to start, and if you would please.
All right, so I'm Francesca Antonelli. I teach English 1 pre-AP, so all freshmen, all day, every day. Before that, I worked at Booker T. I was in Houston. I taught AP Lit and Lang, and that was really fun working with the older kiddos. What else? I'm sponsored of National Honor Society. That's a treat. But I've been teaching for 5 years. This is my 5th year now.
Fantastic.
My name is Amanda McGill. I teach chemistry and IPC here at Ball High School. This is my 2nd year in GISD. Originally from the Midwest, where I taught a number of years at the high school level between public and charter environments, and within all of the different core subjects. And so I'm going to be here and happy to help you out.
Edgardo Galindo, nobody come here This is my 8th, well, off and on my 10th year here. I'm the French teacher, French 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I teach French with freshmen to seniors. Taught a year in France, and I did middle school my student teaching, and I did 1 year 3rd grade bilingual in San Jacinto. And so this is my 8th year here. I'm also the sponsor for French National Honor Society. We just had a meeting, so it's a little bit extra. That's fine. I like it. The kids are there. They like being there.
Awesome. Fantastic.
All right, my name is Kelly Day. It's coming up on my 3rd year teaching. Super excited. I actually kind of knew what I was doing this year. I teach chemistry regular and chemistry pre-AP. I am a sponsor for the class, the current senior class of 2019. I'm a coach for UIL, mathematics, number sense, and calculator. I was alternatively certified through A&M. I do have, just like you, my master's degree in curriculum and instruction. Only ever taught at Ball, only ever taught public school. Very excited, hoping for all pre-AP next year. Some experience teaching dual credit.
Well, fantastic. What a marvelous group that we have here with us today. So I'm very interested to see what you guys say. You know, one of my things is whenever you're working within a team environment and you're working with other people, you want to make sure that you're relaxed. We all have a good rapport. We know each other, and it's a wonderful thing, I think, for candor and honesty. But I would like to start off with a little icebreaker, just to elicit a couple smiles and laughs before we get going into the real serious stuff. So we're going to do 2 truths and a lie. So I'm going to give you about a minute to write those down, and just do it on the back of your paper. When you are done, please turn your paper over, and so we all know that we're ready to go, and then we'll share.
True signature.
Yeah, thank you.
Nothing about music.
Yes, it is. There's some stuff people don't know.
Let's see.
I don't know too much about me.
I know.
This is where I have the advantage of the
Yeah.
videos.
Who would like to be the brave one and share first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
I like it. I got lots of brave people. We have lots of good ideas today.
Okay, so I have 3 cats. I'm an only child, and I grew up a figure skater.
3 cats, an only child, and a figure skater.
I know
An
you-
only child, that's only child, yes.
Yes.
He's the only child.
No, that's true. That's true.
Oh.
That's
It's true. Okay, only child's true.
I have a
The
ton of-
figure
I have a
skater
ton
is
of-
true. I know that.
That is true.
The cats.
You don't
How
have
many
three
cats
cats.
do you have?
I don't have any cats anymore. I have 1 dog.
Okay.
You went from a cat person to a dog person. That's kind of special, right?
I went from both to 1 moving states.
Okay.
Okay.
Fantastic. Who's the next victim?
All right. Let's see how well y'all know me. Okay, my favorite color is teal. I recently went to Malta. I have a tattoo.
You do not have a tattoo.
Teal.
I
You know?
have a tattoo.
I thought it was teal.
What color is teal? I don't know what's teal.
I've gotten really teal lately because that Arctic mug that I have.
Oh, yeah.
That's a 1990s color. I was
What
like,
color is
oh,
teal?
It's like a
bluish green.
like a
Green.
sea foam.
Okay.
I've been thinking about teal a lot, Rob.
Oh, I like it. Okay.
I'm going next.
You want to go next? Or what do you got?
Oh, no,
You go.
okay.
You go ahead, buddy.
I've traveled across America. I slept outside in negative 30-degree weather, and I slept in a Paris park overnight.
I believe the Paris part. I can see you getting.
Paris Park.
My girlfriend kicked me out.
Oh no!
Well, she kind of half kicked me out, and the other half I walked out in principle.
It's a mutual.
Oh, I know you traveled a lot, but all over America.
I'm thinking about the negative 33.
He was in the
Was in the
service. So I'm gonna go with lie as you travel all over America.
Yeah, I only know Texas and Alaska.
It's like you were like me, you've been to more foreign countries
Yeah, I've
than
been
you
to
have
more.
in the States.
I've only been to Alaska and Texas. That's
That's wonderful, okay.
All
What's
right. So I am a certified yoga instructor. I have a 40-year-old niece, and I spent spring break in Cancun.
Cancun's great, but that's kind of.
I'll refrain from answering this one. Since I know.
You didn't go to Cancun.
I didn't.
No.
Okay, that's technically, yeah.
I was like, you would have told me, right?
40-year-old niece, how's that possible? You're like your parents are like the youngest.
I'm a late child for my dad.
Okay.
So when I was born, all my brothers and sisters were having their kids. I'm not 40.
Getting there. All right.
Pass the mark.
I graduated with 3 degrees from the University of Texas. I can barely sit down right now or stand up. Should put both those in there. And I am a burgeoning vegan.
You're not a vegan.
I said burgeoning.
I know. When would you ever be a vegan?
Does that mean you cannot partake from the ovum or the? I can't. It's the cheese thing. No, I couldn't do that.
Why can't you really get up? What's wrong?
CrossFit.
Oh, okay. Oh, you sore?
Yes.
Okay.
I am sore.
I thought you hurt
Good
yourself.
for you, though.
Did you have a bad back or something?
Yes, kind of, but it's getting better. It's
Okay.
been better. I just need it. This is the problem right now. We're gonna keep it.
Okay.
So, okay, guys. Well, thank you. It's gonna keep it a little lighthearted, and I want to get serious because I really want your opinions. So the first thing I just want is kind of a brainstorm. I just kind of want you to think what comes to your mind. I'm gonna let you do most of the commentary. If I see that we're getting a little bit unfocused, I might call us back in to where we want to be. But the first thing that comes to mind, what comes to your mind when we're thinking of good professional development? What are some words that come to your mind or thoughts?
For me, the PD that I really benefit from is when it's in my content area. And there are modeled lessons, there are things I can take away, like physical copies. But those have always been the best. Like an actual modeled lesson where you can take these away.
Right.
Yeah, I have a similar, I wrote in responses for you, so. Anyway, my response was obtaining information and strategies that I'm actually able to implement within the classroom, be it content related, those are always good, especially in the science realm. We kind of get the shaft as far as, content specific professional developments, but whether or not it's content related, pedagogy related, or in classroom management, those are always good to come away with tools. You can never have enough tools for classroom management. So I think those are good ones as well, as long as it doesn't become redundant.
Right.
Well, since being a foreign language teacher, we hardly ever get professional development in foreign language. The professional development I'm experienced with is usually, across the board, having to do with laws or stuff like that.
Yeah.
So those aren't fun, right? So as long as they're, they don't stay too long after school or something because you're tired. I mean, it's more basic to me when you're, a pet peeve of mine is, and this is a little bit negative, is when you can tell that it's just something that everybody has to do when you're checking a box. So you can see even if the administration is not into it, like, hey, this is what we have to do, okay, fine, and everybody's just rolling their eyes, so you feel like a big waste of time. So you can, in the ideal world, those meetings or those professional development classes will be minimized.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So time, like the idea of this time being valuable,
Yeah.
this time is precious.
Exactly.
So it's kind of, I think we all kind of feel that same distinction with it. Yes.
I think good PD has a lot of teacher choice in it. So I prefer PDs that I get to choose. So I'm so lucky that I got to go to CAS last year, and I got to choose out of 10 sessions at a time which ones are the most interesting, which ones relate to my content, which ones will help me with my pedagogy, which will help with classroom management. And it had so many different options. I was never bored. There was always something for me to go and do. Those were always the most beneficial.
If I can add on something, I don't
Sure.
remember like 3 or 4 years ago, we had to do like 5 hours over the summer. And they gave us a choice, go on and find, and that I liked because I was like, they said, if you're gonna go traveling, the last week of school, they're gonna start, so you can hurry up and do those, 2 or 3 days after school, or that first week of school, and you picked and choose what you wanted to go to, and those I felt were really good.
So giving you choice and empowering you is
exactly.
one of those things that you're looking for. Now,
And then you did it, and they gave you multiple hours to do it, and like you can do it all like in 2 days or 1 day, and that's kind of cool. That felt really good because you woke up in the morning, went to it, and you were great all day long.
well, building on that, I mean, what do you guys? I'm kind of go a little bit out of order here because I just think it builds on what you just said. What do you guys think about the PD that we've done as a school this year, to be specific, and how does it align with the things that you said that you just value? And just be honest and candid, because it's not.
I don't like them at the beginning of the school year when they're all crammed in one after the other. Because after the third one, you're like, whatever. And even if you want to give it the seriousness to it, you can't, because you're worried about the beginning of school, you have your own things to worry about, and then just cram one after the other, as compared to if you spread it out, like I said, you can give it the attention and the seriousness that it might need, right? That's just to me, one after another, cram them all in 3 or 4 days, like, it's just.
Well, and the other thing that's unfortunate about our school is that because of the way that we receive grants, we have Band-Aid grant after Band-Aid grant after Band-Aid grant, and so all of these things are so temporary, so like fleeting, like why?
Oh, there's no follow through.
Exactly. So, there's only social emotional learning I can get until it's time for, capturing kids' hearts has been consistent. They haven't let that one go.
No, it's true. They've been more consistent on that one.
Yeah.
So kind of the idea of relevancy and then consistency with it. I mean, what are your thoughts on this year's?
Yeah, I agree with the information overload right up front. I think it's a lot, to put on the plate, like you said, with getting the year started and planned and getting familiar with the district. I'm still learning, what these different grants are and what they're for. So I'm curious to see how long these things last. In a previous school, I think I taught in Charlotte for a couple of years, and had a principal that was really good with like research data, and so he had a focus on PD, and I remember him quoting the statistic. I don't think I could ever find it, but on average, a PD will never last more than 3 years in a school, and then typically, statistically, you will find with bringing in new professional developments, you'll find like a dip in a standard deviation curve before you see an increase of that whatever program it might be success. And so his goal was to keep a specific strategy for at least a minimum of 5 years, because he wanted to see if, how much more would the success rate increase if that was kept over time and refined, retweaked, but it had to be something good. It had to be something that people bought into, that they wanted to do. And so,
I feel like any program takes 5 years. Like anything you're trying to.
yeah.
Because I read somewhere that after every 3 years, people change. And
Yeah.
the schools will try something different. And
Right.
they'll try something
Yeah.
different every 3 years. First year, yeah. Second year, let's do the dirty line. And then third year, like, let's try something new.
And then there's so many, like it's kind of like, going through a buffet line of PD, and you're putting this on your plate and this on your plate and that on your plate, and throughout the year, like your plate, something's gonna fall off, or a couple of things, because
Right.
you're just gonna run out of room. There's so many different things coming at you. It's hard to do any one thing well when you're dabbling in several different,
So focusing maybe on it.
Things.
And then
yeah.
giving you the tools to implement it. Last year, were y'all in that meeting to convince kids to get in the AP class?
Equal opportunity
Which is a
schools.
great idea,
It is
right?
a good idea.
That was an awesome idea. Go convince the kids to join AP. Great. Now do it on your own time.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and they were like, well, when are we going to do this? Oh, yeah, in class, we get like 5 or 10 minutes to go to this other kid and go to the class. Wait, who's going to watch my class? Well, try to go like in your conference center, but I haven't been in my conference center. Yeah, but try to do that when you can. Great, okay, fine, thank y'all.
Yeah,
Are you serious? Yeah.
unrealistic expectations for us as
Yeah.
teachers. That's another thing with PD. If it's not manageable or accomplishable, I can't see how it's that.
Would you throw in measurable? to that as
Oh,
well?
measurable, 100%.
Yeah.
And I know that all of our data here is skewed because I don't think people are honest
Yeah.
whenever they're being
Because-
asked to do.
And then when I was walking out, I heard a teacher say, great, so because I'm doing my job, you're giving me extra work. And that's basically what that's a negative
So
way of
is that-
looking at it.
is that-
I mean,
Yeah.
when you get cynical and after a week of a lot of work, you're like, great, I have to do this now. And it's just really, if you would have given me the time and said, okay, this day we're going to give you half a sub day or something. Okay, great. If you give me the time to do this, I'll go look for those kids and convince them.
Do you credit, that kind of cynicism because of, is that professional development in general, or is it because the way that we tend to do professional development here?
I think, sorry.
100%. I think it's how we do it here. I mean, it's forced. It's at inconvenient times. It's surprise.
Right.
But
Day.
when I went to the cast thing, sorry, I keep bringing it, but it's everyone there was like, oh my god, I get to go, and we're gonna do this. They were so excited about going and getting to learn, and people were asking questions, and no one was sitting in the back playing on their phone. No one was talking through the lecture. It was 100% engaged. It was the perfect classroom. 100% engagement. Everybody was happy. And here we have a half day, and you find out the day before that you're gonna spend 3 hours
Locked in your room.
locked in your room, or
For
3
active
hours.
shooter,
Yeah.
nonetheless.
Which is
Locked
important,
in
but
an
I mean,
auditorium.
we have to do it. We're going to have another half day in a few weeks. I think if they would better economize the time that we have.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And, sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
Well, like we do as teachers, you have to set those expectations for, I guess not in this instance it's teachers, but they need to provide that with the same professional courtesy.
Now, you guys have been, teaching for quite a while. You've worked in various districts. You've worked in different districts. Comparing your experience there to here, what were the differences, advantages, or perhaps deficiencies?
I loved what Houston had going on. So every 6 weeks we had a half day, and so on that half day you would go to one high school. So it might be, who was the one, like Bel Air or something. And so all of the AP teachers in the entire district would go meet. And so then there'd be master AP teachers who would actually model instructions and lessons and then share those resources.
That's great.
So every 6 weeks your pump would just get refueled because you're with all these other teachers who are excited and you get to talk about English because you're a bunch of nerds. And it was every 6 weeks. It was awesome.
One thing I find about PD within the state of Texas is so driven towards standardized testing that I think that it unfortunately overshadows what we are able to bring out of teachers and what we're able to bring out of students. Having taught I taught in 2 other states, and then also having taught in a charter environment, one thing I liked about the charter environment is because I had autonomy to just be as creative as possible with how my content was delivered.
Did you have So speaking of that autonomy, did you have that regarding your professional development? Was there any type?
Yes, our school, that particular school, I really enjoyed that school because the focus of it was project-based learning. It was developed and modeled after high-tech high school in California. And so I think it's one of the questions on here,
Right.
like what's your best PD you have attended? So it was the Buck Institute project-based learning professional development that was developed by, I'm not sure if he was an administrator or a teacher or something, but he had something to do with the high-tech high model out in California. And he brought that to our school, which was an inner-city Detroit school, so it was very urban. We had severely at-risk students, and we started in the summer, and we did a lot of upfront legwork as a staff with this particular person, like how do you organize effectively, and what does project-based learning look like, first of all, because there's so many different ideas of what, you know, same name, different concept kind of thing. So what did it look like for us? And then how do you organize it? How do you plan it? You know, what is your sequencing going to be? How do you make it an interdisciplinary approach? And then how do you link in our state objectives, which the state objectives are similar, they're parallel from state to state, and every state has testing, but I've never seen a state with the just the intensity of
And it changes the
how it
energy so
overshadows
yeah.
everything instructionally and creates so much stress on the teacher and the students.
I think middle school is work, right? That's
Yeah,
what
middle
the-
school
the
does have more
testing.
testing. So one of the issues you're seeing then is instead of teacher need or what a teacher really desires to kind of look into, it's really just driven by trying to meet a standardized test and whatever those.
We're teaching a test here.
Mhm.
We're teaching a test and we're teaching it for data. And in Texas, we've learned how to structure our tests for that standardized test, and we've learned how to structure and collect data for the state to address that test. But when, you know, to be honest, when you get down to it, you know, and you try to get in the kids' heads, those facts mean nothing to the kids, you know, if they can't do something with them in the real world.
Have you had any professional development that you guys, speaking of data, this is one of the things we kind of talked about in the course that I'm in right now. And data driving instruction is really the big paradigm. And we're not just talking standardized testing data, we're talking formative assessments and benchmarks and things that are closer to. Have you guys gone to an effective training regarding data, or is
I actually did. So a few months, I guess it was a few months ago, what is time? So they're changing the English TEKS. So not this year, but I think 2021 is when like they're officially changing our TEKS. So I actually went to a PD on data led by Kristen Ledbetter from Lead Forward. And she showed us all the TEKS. They're actually much, much better. And that was a really interesting, because we just compared and contrasted and saw what we were moving towards, and that was refreshing.
Okay.
So that was.
well, you know, we've kind of talked about some of the things that inspire us or motivate us and some of the things that might be demotivating to an extent. What I'd like to know from each one of you is what is the best professional development that you have attended, and why was it powerful and meaningful to you? Because I think that's the essence. When we're asking ourselves how to develop good professional development for our teachers, I think we need to extract in a sense from our teachers, what is it that made something that they went to very good, it was very helpful and productive. What was it about that? So you guys can think about it a little bit. If you need a couple moments, that's fine, but I'd like to hear your ideas.
The ones that I led. No, okay. I'll think about it.
Let's take 30 seconds if you need it. We'll come back.
Well, I went to an AP professional development course for the summer once, like 3 years ago. And I thought it was going to be a basic sit there and they'll talk. And it was going to be a 3-day thing. And I remember the first day of the meetings of the session, he just looked at us and said, okay, what do y'all want to know about this stuff? And he said, all of y'all write questions, and I'll answer your questions about the advanced placement test. Because he said, here's the workbook, y'all can read it. I mean, unless you want me to read it to y'all instead. Which is basically what the class is, but let's not do that. I mean, he said the last day we'll do that, but right now, what do y'all want? Specifically, any questions y'all have about the AP test, about instructions, anything? And for the first 2 days, he just answered our questions in detail, so obviously other people had the same question.
Did they do, was this the Rice AP
Yeah.
Institute? Yeah, I would just to piggyback on that. That was an incredible experience with you with a lot of great, and you're with, I think, going back to what you had said prior, you're with people in your own content
exactly.
area. So you're building on their assignment.
And of course, I was in a classroom full of French teachers.
Right.
So it was specifically.
And then it becomes, in a sense, yeah, you're talking about the AP test, but it's really more about strategically how do we attack that information and help our students grow. And you see people model and do different activities. And I think that's.
I think it was obviously it was over the summer, so you were rested, you weren't burnt out from the regular day. You went there with gusto. You wanted to know. You were excited about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that helped. To me, I think that was great. That was one of the most helpful ones I ever went to.
Miss Day, do you have a PD in mind that you've done?
I do. I had, if I can go fast, maybe 3.
You can do as many as you want, please. Sure.
So I had, one was just, it was a session at the thing last year, and it was all about making science fun. And it was all little.
At the convocation?
No, it was, it's the, what is CAST? Okay, Science Teachers is the end of it. Association of Science Teachers.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
But
I thought it might be a fisherman's.
it was just all about making science fun, and she had little gaggy stuff in there. If you slapped a certain kind of paper with water, it turned red, looked like bloody handprint, and just really fun little tricks, and it's just little attention grabbers. That was, it really, I almost cried when I was leaving because I was so burned out by that time. It was like, oh, I forgot. I can have fun and do my own thing.
Yeah.
I had one PD where I actually went with Zara Ectify, and she and I did a PBL training together, and it was so informative because I had the PD training for PBLs through the school, which was nothing, and then I went and I was like, oh my god, I didn't even know what a PBL really was, or how useful it could be, or how I could implement it with my kids. And then getting to do that with someone who is so knowledgeable, who has so much more experience than I do, who's done PBLs, getting to talk with her and getting to talk with these other teachers who've done this so many times was just amazing. And then I had one that taught about getting your students to be, to have metacognition, to think about their own thinking. And I had never realized how little the students realize what they're learning. It's so surface level, and learning different tricks to be able to get them to realize, like, oh man, this does apply to my life. This is something that I can use.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm going to ask this question to Ellie.
No, you're totally good. In Houston, I went to, it was one of the, like, it was almost like a Rice training, but it was exclusively done through Houston, and so we got to go to different classrooms, learn different strategies. And, I think I'm a good teacher, but this one guy who led the PD, he was, like, insane. He was so good. He had taken the STAR, because he was so tired of STAR, the scoring system, and aligned it with the 1 through 9 grading system for the AP test, so it converted. Like, this was, like, what he must have done on a Tuesday. Like, he was insanely good. But I really enjoyed that. So just, like, the knowledge and, that kind of master teacher and the energy, just sharing out strategies, and for sure.
I think that's important in any PDs, to be able to keep teachers inspired. Not only is it important for new teachers, but I think it's just as, if not more important, for veteran teachers who have been in the game for a number of years, because you just get so tired out.
Well, teachers are the worst. Like, you
Yeah.
go to PD, most teachers, man, if
sure.
you're not good, they will eat you alive.
Yeah, you'd be on the back, not
Yeah.
paying attention to, like, whatever.
The best PDs I think I've ever gone to have always been led by other teachers.
Right.
I've been to ones that are led by, and I've not had Kristen do it, but the lead forward ones that the district has.
Kristen's good.
The ones that are done by a company, and they're going to sell you some miracle
Yeah.
game plan and how to never have a student fall asleep in your class ever again. It's like, this is
Right.
never, I don't want us to be sold a product. I want to hear from a teacher, preferably a current teacher, preferably a teacher who's been teaching for a while.
And not in a bubble.
Yeah, and has someone who's not been at the private school for angels only.
Mhm.
Those are always the best.
I went to a PD administration building a few years back, and it was how to do hands-on stuff.
Uh-huh.
And the lady said, bring lesson plans, whatever, on digits, sure, I had one. And then at the last half a day, more than half a day, like 5 hours, so it was like 3 days off, 4 days, something like that. And it's like, all right, get your lesson plans down, and it's your time. to put this in your lesson plan. So here, go at it, it's your
Yeah,
time.
it's
Because
nice.
a lot of times you get good ideas, but I mean, okay, you forget about it, or next time you're doing lesson plans, you know, how can I implement this? And since she was there, like, you do lesson plans now, and I'll help you maybe give you ideas to put it in your lesson plan. Just go to a lesson plan and say, I can do this here, I can do this there, and put it in there, and then you can date the lesson plan. So that way, she's giving you time to implement whatever the topic was into planning for the future.
So I think what I hear you guys saying quite a bit is practicality.
Mhm.
I think, you know, I know we've all been here with experience. This year, in fact, we've been doing, you know, Eric Jensen's research, which is fascinating research about metacognition within students in poverty. And it is fascinating and it's interesting. But then we did that same professional development, I think, a couple of weeks ago, where somebody came in and spoke to us again, laying down. I don't want to say that we know what poverty is. You know, it's like you listen to Ruby Payne. It's fantastic. It's informative. But many times you walk into these situations, at least I have, and the professional development is so laden with theory. And you wonder, and I think you guys kind of point to another fact is, it's one thing to have had skins on the wall, so to speak. So I used to teach 20 years ago, or I taught 15 years ago. And the question that kind of comes to your mind is, well, why in the hell did you get out of the classroom? You know, what made you
But
out of
then
the classroom?
the one thing when we had the PD a few weeks ago about poverty is like, and she asked the question, who gives homework? And she kind of like it was implying that giving homework in a community where there's high poverty, it's a waste of time because you're not going to do it. Which yes and no, right? You can argue it both ways. But then in theory, in education nowadays, you get a lot about the flipped classroom.
Right.
Give it the homework, and then you just serve as the facilitator in class. So give them homework, don't give them homework.
Well,
Right.
I think what Rob nailed down about why PD doesn't work here at Ball is everyone is speaking at us, and
Yes.
that's not PD.
No, it's not. It's like you're going in and it's somebody giving
Mini lecture.
a mini
Yeah.
lecture, a discourse about something, and
At an
whereas
awful time.
or without notification, which is, but that, you know, that's a lack of professionalism at the administrative
And
level.
also, it's pushed on us
Yeah.
in a certain amount of time.
And then you already don't like it.
Yeah.
You
So
already don't like doing that.
if it's as important as you
So-
say, then present it the proper amount of time. Break it up in 2 days, or break it up into small classes. That way, of small groups, like all the math teachers, all the English teachers. Here's the information, and here's how we would like you to use it in your English or your math or your science
Yeah.
class. That's to just like, here's, you know, pie in the sky kind of stuff. Now go.
Yeah.
And all of the administrators should be in attendance
exactly.
for the entire time, and they should be, if they expect us to be paying attention to minutes, they should be.
Mhm.
When we went to that 1 3-hour PD, our principal never walked in.
Exactly.
He was not there at all. And that really made it feel not
Yeah.
important.
Well, and we don't have a school culture that supports.
No.
Like, one of the things that made me so mad.
Expectations.
So that's interesting. So it's a school culture being.
Oh yeah, it has to support PD. And the fact that my first year here, I'm sitting listening to a lecture, and I watch every coach, with exceptions,
Mhm.
stand up
Yeah.
and walk out after 5 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely
Yeah.
an issue. It's demotivating, you know, as we would say. And
Like, why are they exempt and I gotta sit
Yeah.
here for this?
Well, there's so much. of
well,
it.
and how many times this is something that bring up that kind of builds upon, you know, some things that I've heard prior is, so for instance, the stuff about poverty. We work in a school with what, 65% socially economically disadvantaged, and probably at one point we were 95% Title I. I don't think we're that high anymore. I think but we're high. Right?
As of the statistics
So
last year.
it is relevant when we
Very
speak
much.
about
Oh
poverty.
yeah.
But what's not relevant is to have, and I'm not saying redundancy. You want to stick and have consistency, but redundancy without strategic value.
Exactly.
And what you guys are all saying to me is, hey, if I go into a training and I want it to be valuable, it needs to put some tools in my tool belt.
Because at the beginning of the school year, they gave us that
Yeah.
video, very good video,
Yes.
great. And then they did it to us again, another theory session, great. Now,
What-
make it practical to us.
What's the
Yeah.
practicality involved in it? What are the strategies that we use? And I think one thing that I've heard everybody say, and we all would agree on this, and that we tell our kids, you know, I do it, you know, we do it, you do it, and there's such a lack of modeling when I go to a lot of these. The best, well, I never talked about my best friend. I'll do it quickly. It was an ESL training, in which, because those are just language strategies outside of the Rice Institute one. But there was a lot of practicality. Yes, we learned how about a test, but we did things that invigorated you to think that way about it. And I find so often here, which is once again, this is not to get off topic because I want to do that, but you have to have, when we're talking about professional development, strong instructional leadership. And you've got to have a culture that breeds that kind of thinking and that builds on each other. And then furthermore, I think you have to offer that choice of content-specific type of training. Because when you get into back in the classroom, class management's applicable to every classroom.
Mm-hmm.
There's no doubt about it. But in a lot of English tragedies are.
But if you have that culture, your management issues subside somewhat. In this charter school where we did the project-based learning, we had, I don't know how the superintendent did it, but he got all the buy-in that he needed to from every constituent that participated in that school.
So when you talk about that, because let's focus really on what you just said, I think is crucial. You said buy-in. What gave you, what was it about what he did or what the instructional leaders did there with the professional development that made you feel that sense of, I'm in?
So part of it was the character and the person that he was in general, and just like that passion that he had. He was opening a new school. We were opening one grade. We're going to grow, a grade, each year. So like he was able to hook the teachers, with their buy-in, with how he spoke to them and what his plan and what his vision was. He was able to hook the parents. He was able to hook the students. He was kind of like a tap dancing politician who could entertain. He could sell ice to an Eskimo, and so it just was who he was. But he did it right, and he was able to get everybody's buy-in to mesh into one larger vision. And then he broke it down, sort of like this is a focus group. He took the teachers and said, okay, this is what, we're going to go through, and this is how it's going to work. And, we're a family here. And it was a small school environment. There was few of us, and he gave us what we needed to be able to succeed. A lot of times in large schools like this, you have all this stuff thrown at you, and, you're set up for failure in a sense. Mm-hmm. He didn't do that to us. He set us up for success and made us work through those struggles and, the ups and downs and jump the hurdles. And by the end of the year, we showed some success, and then over the course of 3-4 years, we showed even more success. And we had the opportunity each week. We had a half day on Friday, so we could come together, as a team.
Every week?
I love that.
Every week. Yeah, it was a charter school, and so.
That's a great idea.
And so the students had early release, and so they would go home half a day. So we knew every Friday we were coming together. We had an agenda a couple of days ahead of time. We had to bring something to the table, and we had homework every week, that we had to report back to. So there was an accountability piece too, and then because he was that kind of a principal, you just didn't want to let plum down. You were on your best. And so he kept you inspired. He pushed you past, your own cognitive dissonance, and that by him pushing us as, most of us were younger, teachers within the first, 3 to 5 years. And so the way he was able to push us helped us to be able to push our students.
That was, part of what you're talking about professional development, when you have, so for instance, Ms. Dave's been teaching for 3 years, and you guys have been teaching almost a decade, maybe a little bit less. That's also the battle you have to fight a little bit with your veteran teachers. But I think that feeds back into what we've all talked about when professional development is not viewed as being valuable, when we continuously make the same type of kind of errors, in a sense, that eventually people, I don't want to say the word tune out, but it becomes some kind of, it's a task rather than an investment. To me, professional development should be an investment in ourselves, in our colleagues, and then building off of each other. That's one of the issues that we see here. So when we talk about, just to kind of do a little bit of summation before we go, some of the things that I heard, if you guys have any ideas when I say these words, or you have any disagreements, or you want to build on it, please go ahead. But I saw modeling. I've heard modeling probably 20 or 30 times from all of us.
From top to bottom.
from top to bottom. I mean, I keep hearing that come up. I would say it's content relative. It's strategic as well, so I think that kind of falls into the modeling. There's some autonomy involved, so there's an idea of giving you some choice. And maybe we do that within our teams, with each other. We're building through consensus, and we find a good professional development that we can agree on. And one of the words I always come back to me, it comes back to me when I think about is practicality and pragmatism. Is this going to be effective in the classroom? Because so many times we talk about, I think, you look at some of the research when you've been out of the classroom for 3 months, it's very easy to forget some of the issues that teachers go through. And I think that you see that sometimes in your professional development where there is a dissonance with what's really occurring. There's a disconnect, better said.
There has to be a level of reality here too. I mean, when you're going to do the PD as the faculty, the administrator, you have to ask yourself, I'm asking the teacher to do more. Because if you are asking the teacher to do more, then you're really adding on to the problem and you're not helping the issue. Even if it's a great idea. But if you're asking the teacher to do more, the teachers are really going to start looking at the negatively.
Or I think just to counteract that, maybe if you're asking somebody to do more, they've got to see the value.
Exactly.
And
So you really have to sell it by the good modeling, by the practicality of it, and by selling it by saying, okay, this is going to help you. I know I'm asking you to do more, but I'm going to give you that time. Okay, somehow.
To follow through. I think the follow through is
And
important.
because it's so important, we're going to follow through on another PD following this one up the next month. And we're going to follow up with another PD after that because it's so important. Even though I'm asking you to do more, but it's really important. You know, don't just say here, do more, and then.
And I think one of the most common things that I hear from teachers, at least in this district, is, well, we did this for a year or 2 years or 3 years, and then we left it behind.
Yes.
You know, and it never can be effective if there's not consistency. But that your leadership has got to model it and be consistent in doing it as well. Which the professional development is, to me at least, tied to leadership, as well as I see it. You know, because you to be, as you said, we don't want to let Mr. Plum down because it inspires us to be our best, and that professional development is the tool set.
Yeah, and because he didn't let us down.
Right.
You know, I mean, we laughed, we cried, we cussed, we drank, we did it all, and we grew those kids. Oh my God, over the 4-year period, it's just like I think back and it almost like tears up how much I'll never have that experience again.
So
you know,
and going to that in a sense, if you're saying, as we grow, you grow. So as teachers, we have to grow our kids, and we know that we work with a very difficult populace that has a lot of issues, and that's always a difficult battle. It makes us tiresome.
I think it's something we have to be said here. Maybe I'm not feeling it. If anybody else feeling it, I don't have a negative aspect towards professional development. We need it, like you said. We need to grow.
Right.
We need to be reminded of lessons, ideas, and theories. We need to be reminded of this. But it can be so easily be as something negative, like if it's something silly. You know, if it's something there's no follow through. So you start to become cynical about it.
Right.
Even though I appreciated that I need it as a teacher. You never stop learning. You never stop growing.
Right.
But if like anything like that, the expression goes, practice makes perfect. Well, perfect practice makes perfect. Don't just make me stay here every 2 hours, every two weeks, an extra hour into good. You know.
And I suppose that's the scariest. That's probably the biggest enemy in education, because I think most educators happen to be, when I say enemy, I mean cynicism. Because as educators, in a sense, I have to say, as a group, we're generally kind of champions of idealism. You've got to be. Otherwise, you know, you work with some of these situations, whether it becomes a professional development or instructional or whatever it may be, you know, you've got to remain motivated. That can be difficult when you're browbeaten. And I think that happens a lot of times with professional development. Well, not to beat your brows anymore. I already have. One last thing I want to say to you is I'm going to send you a survey through email just to want to get your thoughts on how the focus group went. But I also want to solicit your opinions on just some basic professional development information and how you guys think that we might be able to reach out to teachers, to empower them, to be a part of the process, and really to lead them. I mean, one of the things I will say before we end, I would love to go see our master teachers, get an Antonelli in there, you know, and let her lead the PD and also compensate them.
Oh yeah.
For, you know,
I would like
because I don't know how much budgetary we're putting towards that, but we all can agree that if it's critical to have modeling practicality, strategic value, and it's best to be done by teachers that are in the classroom still. That can sit there and say, hey, I'm still in the foxhole, man.
Yeah.
I'm still a worker bee. They haven't knocked me off yet. Kind of deal. So I'll be getting those surveys to you. I look forward to your feedback. I cannot thank you enough for your graciousness and your time. I know it's been a long day, and I truly appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
It was a good little session.